Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at a new combo that's come around in the Pokemon TCG, which is absolutely, flat out, broken. It's not always going to work, but when it does work, it will, and I feel very confident saying this, completely ruin the game for your opponent. Now, I need to give a big shout out here to the lovely Talonite X who did find this list and make me aware of it. This has been making some waves in Expanded over in Japan, and it's going to make some waves in Expanded over here. And it is very much an Expanded deck, but that's okay. That's what makes it kind of broken. So what we've got here is Dialga VSTAR. That came around in Battle Region. We all know it's coming in Astral Radiance. And Dialga VSTAR is a very interesting card. And we said this the second we saw it. It wasn't some kind of massive, unheard of prediction. Everybody looked at this card and was like, oh no, that's broken. Because the VSTAR power lets you do 220 damage, but then take an extra turn. Now, it's hideously expensive. But we said right at the beginning that if you could find a way to actually get this rolling, this is going to lead to potentially broken combos. Well, the good news is that if you head over to Expanded, we've got a bunch of ways to get this rolling, one of which is Electro GX, and that's the one we're really focusing on here. Now, Electro GX has a rather nice ability, Extra Energy Bomb. Once during your turn, you may attach 5 energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon, except Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX, in any way you like, and if you do, this Pokemon is knocked out. And this is the first part of the combo which is broken, because when Electro GX came out, we had Pokemon EX and Pokemon GX, Pokemon V, including VMAX and V-Star, they weren't thought of, they weren't a thing. Now, nowadays, we can look at cards like Cherim as an example, and that specifically refers to Pokemon that don't have a rule box. That's the one that lets you attach as much grass energy as you like. But that wasn't around back then. Nowadays, you've got to think Electrode would be any Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box and would be fine. It's not the case. So all you need to do is get 5 energy in the discard, and then you can attach those 5 energy to Dialga using Electrode, and then, oh look, you've actually got enough energy to pull this off. Although at this stage, we do need to mention Battle Compressor, because Battle Compressor, full on, absolutely broken. Because Battle Compressor allows you to discard 3 cards from your deck. Well, you really need to get 5 energy in the discard nice and early. Oh look, this will help you do it nicely. And there are videos I made on this channel, a couple of years ago probably at this stage, where I told you I thought Battle Compressor was going to be banned and Expanded. It hasn't been, but I still think if Expanded doesn't start doing a rotation, one day this is going to end up being banned, because it seems like every time we end up with a ridiculous combo, this is right at the center of it. So we've got Battle Compressor to get the energy in the discard, Electrode to get it onto Dialga, and then you deal 220 damage, getting a KO on basically anything, and you get to take an extra turn afterwards. That's a little bit nuts. And at this stage, it's probably a good idea to make it clear that yes, Electrode KOs itself, yes, you give your opponent 2 prizes, but all that really does is open up plays like Countercatcher. Because Countercatcher lets you automatic gust as long as you're behind on prizes. Well, this is going to basically guarantee that you are behind on prizes, so the going behind on prizes actually ends up being a good thing. This is kind of ridiculous. So okay, we've gone and bought ourselves an extra turn. What are we going to do with that extra turn? And the answer to that is a combination of Cyrus, yes, the Prism Star Cyrus, and Garchomp and Giratina. You see, what Cyrus does, it's a supporter card that says you can play this card only if your active Pokemon is a water or metal Pokemon. Not an issue because your active will be a water or metal Pokemon. Your opponent chooses 2 bench Pokemon and shuffles the others and all cards attached to them into their deck. So you put your opponent down to 2 bench Pokemon. But you really need to try and counter Catcher first, because what you really want to do is gust up something rubbish, something like a Crobat as an example. some supporter Pokemon, or Tapu Lele. Something that your opponent really doesn't want. You know, that basically, look at your opponent's board. Think of the first Pokemon that they are going to discard when you use Cyrus, i.e. the one they need the least. Gust that one up, and then make sure that the 2 bench Pokemon they've got remaining are alright, but their active Pokemon is basically useless. And then you bring in Garchomp and Giratina. Because for about the first time ever, we're actually using the GX attack here. GG, the end. For 2 Psychic and 1 Fighting Energy, discard one of your opponent's Pokemon and all cards attached to it. If this Pokemon has at least 3 Fighting Energy attached to it, discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon instead. But remember, because of Cyrus, our opponent only has 2 bench Pokemon. So when we use GG the end, we are getting rid of all of our opponent's bench Pokemon, and because of Counter Catcher, we've made sure that their active is one they don't actually want, at which point they're basically out of the game. They've got to rebuild their board from scratch while we're up and rolling, and at that stage the game is basically over. And I know that the natural reaction of some of you watching at this stage are going to go, well, hang on a second, you're not allowed to do that, are you? And the answer is yes. Your V-Star power is once per game, your GX attack is once per game. But they're completely different mechanics. Which means, yes, you absolutely can, and there isn't a question here, there's no ruling that needs to be given. There is absolutely no issue, no question whatsoever. You 100% can use a GX attack and a V-Star power in the same game, and we're honestly kind of relying on it right here. But at this stage, you've probably thought, well, hang on a second, Wassy, I can see 2 giant flaws with that plan. Firstly, the energy you're using on Dialga is metal energy, and secondly, the energy's on Dialga, not Garchomp and Giratina. What's the deal? And the deal is, we're not using metal energy, we are using a combination of rainbow energy and aurora energy. Rainbow energy counts as any energy when attached. You have to take a damage counter, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it. And then Aurora energy counts as any energy. You've got to discard a card from your hand to play it, but most of the time it's not going to be a big deal, because remember, Aurora energy discards a card from your hand when you attach from your hand. And for what it's worth, Rainbow energy puts a damage counter when you attach from your hand. You're not attaching from your hand, you're attaching from the discard. So now all of a sudden we're just using this special energy, we are good to go, and we're making sure that we can just use it for anyone. And then our ace-spec of choice is Scramble Switch. And Scramble Switch is one of those cards that, it was always a fringe ace-spec. Ace-spec, remember, are those cards that are 1 per deck. If you play this, you can't play anything else. Most decks end up playing Computer Search, just because it searches any card when you discard 2 from your hand. But Scramble Switch has always been a fun alternative. What Scramble Switch does is, it's a switch. Switch your active with one of your bench, but then move as many energy attached to the old active as you like to the new active. So Scramble Switch lets you swap your active Dialga for a Garchomp and Giratina, but at the same time you get to move all the energy over to it, and at that stage, ladies and gentlemen, you are absolutely golden. And then you get rid of all their bench Pokemon, and between your opponent's turns, here's what you've done. You've used Dialga to take a key KO, you've used Counter Catcher to drag something they don't want in the active, you've used Cyrus to completely wreck their bench, and you've used Garchomp and Giratina to put them down to 0 bench Pokemon, so their only Pokemon they've got available is the active that, as we've already mentioned, they don't want. This is an absolutely brutal combo, and it's the kind of thing that is going to wreck your opponent's game. It's the kind of thing where you're going to use it and your opponent's going to be like, brilliant, cheers for that, now what? And the answer is not much, honestly. Now what? Not much. At that point, your opponent's got to basically try and rebuild their entire board from scratch with one rubbishy Pokemon active, and that's just not a realistic thing in the vast majority of games. And then in terms of getting it rolling, what we're going for here is just kind of the fastest, most consistent deck possible. We're playing 4 of those unknown that lets us put it on the bench, and then discard it to draw a card. But one combo I really like here is we've actually got the weird combo here with Rescue Carrier, which I've not seen and expanded with Unknown before, but makes perfect sense. Lets you put up to 2 Pokemon with 90 HP or less from your discard pile into your hand. So the theory here essentially is that you use the Unknown, you use 2 of them, and then you use Rescue Carrier to get them back, use them again, and Rescue Carrier basically turns into draw 2 cards, which is clearly ridiculous. And it's the kind of thing, you can make fast decks and expanded, and this one is a very fast deck. We also then play around with things like Acrobike to draw extra cards, and that new Trekking Shoes. That's the one that lets you look at the top card of your deck and you either draw it or discard it and draw the next one. It's really good. It's not actually out here yet, although there are other things we can use for draw, but it will be out here in the not too distant future, and then this is going to get better. Also, right, do bear in mind, it's kind of irrelevant because we don't have Dialga, and by the time we have Dialga, we're going to have Trekking Shoes, so I honestly wouldn't really worry about it. I think we're going to be okay, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to be okay. And because you're playing some one-offs, Scramble Switch being an obvious one here, we do need to mention quickly Gladion. Gladion's a good idea. Gladion is what makes sure that you can actually get cards that are in the prizes out of the prizes. Here is the list as a whole, which is hard to see, and here is a digital version of the lovely Talonite X Shed, which is much easier to see. I don't know if this is going to rule expanded. I don't know if it's too awkward. All I know is that if this works, it is actually full-on proper job broken, and that at least is worth having a bit of a think about, and maybe a bit of a worry about. But now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think this is legit? Do you think this is an issue? Or do you think it's never going to work consistently enough? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.